You're impossibly fast and strong. Your skin is pale white and ice cold. Your eyes change color.
When people thought the Twilight Saga was over with Breaking Dawn Part 2 back in 2012, most assumed that would be the final chapter of Bella and Edward's story on the screen. But the truth is, Stephenie Meyer has never completely walked away from the universe she created. She's gone back to it a few times, not to extend the main storyline directly, but to flip perspectives and reimagine things in surprising ways. In 2015, she released Life and Death: Twilight Reimagined, which gender-swapped the central romance so that Bella became Beau Swan and Edward became Edith Cullen. Then, in 2020, she gave fans Midnight Sun, a retelling of the very first book from Edward Cullen's point of view. Both were unexpected twists, but Midnight Sun stood out because it gave readers a deeper look at Edward's inner world, something the original saga only hinted at. Now the news that Midnight Sun is being adapted into an animated series for Netflix has stirred up the fandom all over again. Announced in September 2024 during Netflix's Tudum event, the series doesn't have a release date, episode count, or casting details yet, but Stephenie Meyer is confirmed as one of the executive producers. That alone is enough to keep fans hopeful that the show will stay true to her vision. What makes this project so interesting is that it marks the first real adaptation since the final film hit theaters more than a decade ago. So even though Twilight had been quiet for years, it's suddenly making headlines again in a big way. It's worth remembering just how massive Twilight once was. From the mid-2000s to the early 2010s, it wasn't just popular, it was a full-on cultural phenomenon. Meyer's books dominated bestseller lists, the movies dominated the box office, and the fandom dominated online spaces. For a while, you couldn't avoid hearing about Bella, Edward, or Jacob. Twilight didn't just spark vampire mania, it defined an era of young adult storytelling right alongside franchises like The Hunger Games. Even though the films wrapped in 2012, Twilight never really disappeared. It stayed alive through memes, debates, and that mix of love and hate that only a true cultural juggernaut can inspire. That's why the new animated series matters. It's not another rehash of Bella's story, it's a chance to retell everything through Edward's eyes, which means it can highlight moments the original movies left out. For instance, in Twilight, Edward disappears after first meeting Bella in biology class because her scent overwhelms him, but the story doesn't explain where he goes. Midnight Sun fills in that gap, showing that Edward flees to Alaska and stays with the Denali clan, a family of vampires who are close allies of the Cullens. Tanya, one of the Denali, even thinks Edward might be there for her, but she quickly learns that isn't the case. She eventually convinces him to return to Forks and face Bella. Including details like this in the animated show could fix pacing issues from the movies. After all, the Denali clan only popped up in Breaking Dawn, which made their late introduction feel rushed. Seeing them earlier would make the Twilight world feel bigger and more connected from the start. This approach could solve other issues too. A lot of fans felt the movies sometimes skimmed over important subplots because there was only so much time. Animation offers a chance to dive deeper, explore Edward's perspective, and show how his mind works as a vampire constantly battling instinct and emotion. It's not just about telling the same story again, it's about reshaping it so fans get both the nostalgia they crave and fresh insights that add depth to characters they thought they already knew. But as exciting as the animated Midnight Sun series is, it also sparks conversations about the future of Twilight in general. Fans have long wondered if the story could continue beyond Breaking Dawn Part 2, and most point to Renesmee, Bella and Edward's daughter, as the key. Her birth was controversial because of how rushed it felt, not to mention the awkwardness of Jacob imprinting on her as a baby. Still, Renesmee was clearly set up to be important. She's half human, half vampire, something practically unheard of in Meyer's universe, and that alone makes her fascinating. Her existence also connects the vampires and werewolves in a way nothing else ever has. So it isn't a stretch to imagine a sixth movie or even a new book focusing on her. As she grows, Renesmee would have to figure out her identity, torn between two worlds and facing challenges neither her parents nor Jacob can fully prepare her for. And while the imprinting storyline caused a bunch of debates, it was always intended to evolve into a genuine relationship once she matured. A continuation could show that progression in a way that feels more natural and less rushed, giving her the chance to stand on her own as a fully realized character. Plus, the Volturi's looming threat never really went away. Their retreat at the end of Breaking Dawn Part 2 felt more like a pause than a conclusion. They could easily return with new schemes, and Renesmee could end up at the center of that conflict, potentially becoming the bridge that unites vampire covens worldwide. Another direction the story could take is a change of setting. Forks is iconic, but Renesmee's journey doesn't have to stay tied to the rainy little town where everything began. Moving her story to another city or even another country would open the door to new vampire cultures, unfamiliar covens, and unique dangers. It would also refresh the franchise for modern audiences, giving it a broader scope while still holding on to the supernatural romance and family dynamics that define Twilight. And considering how much nostalgia fuels Hollywood right now, with prequels, spin-offs, and reboots everywhere, Renesmee's story feels like the most logical next step for Twilight. And it isn't just fans saying this, some of the actors themselves want to see more. At Fan Expo Canada, Jackson Rathbone, who played Jasper Hale, openly pushed for a prequel about his character. Jasper's backstory as a Confederate soldier turned vampire has always been fascinating, but was only briefly explored in the films. Rathbone explained that his story is really about redemption, forgiveness, and learning self-worth through the love of others. He even said he'd be open to returning with de-aging technology or passing the role to a new actor. For him, what matters most is that Jasper's story gets told because it has the potential to resonate on a deeper level. That shows just how much untapped potential still exists in the Twilight world. Jasper's violent past, his struggles with bloodlust, and his eventual journey into the Cullen family make him one of the saga's most layered characters. A prequel could explore themes of second chances and personal growth, which would hit hard with audiences today. Rathbone's enthusiasm also highlights how invested the cast is, even more than a decade after the film's wrapped. If the actors themselves are this interested, it's a good sign that fans aren't the only ones who think Twilight still has stories left to tell. So what does all of this mean for the future of the franchise? The way things are shaping up, we're looking at multiple paths. On one hand, the animated Midnight Sun is a way to revisit the original story from a new angle, offering fans the nostalgia of Twilight but through a fresh lens. On the other, there's real potential for expansion, whether through Renesmee's continuation, Jasper's prequel, or even spin-offs about other characters in the Cullen clan. Twilight has always been about romance and danger, wrapped in supernatural drama, and those themes are broad enough to keep fueling stories for years. The important part is that Twilight still sparks conversations. Even though the last film came out in 2012, the saga has never fully faded from pop culture. People might mock it, debate it, or celebrate it, but they're still talking about it. And in today's entertainment landscape, that's exactly the kind of staying power studios look for. Between Meyer's involvement in the new Netflix project, fan demand for more stories, and actors campaigning for spin-offs, it feels less like Twilight is done and more like it's entering a new phase. So even though Breaking Dawn Part 2 wrapped up the main saga neatly, the story doesn't have to stay closed. With Renesmee poised for a continuation, Jasper offering material for a prequel, and Midnight Sun already getting the animated treatment, the world Stephenie Meyer built is still brimming with possibilities. Because for a bunch of fans, Twilight never really ended, it just went quiet for a while waiting for the right moment to return. And now, with Netflix's adaptation on the horizon, it looks like that moment has finally arrived. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.